Part 2. Bodies Beneath the Boards. The Victorian Horror That Shocked Dickens. Chapter 8. The kitchen floor was wet. Not from rain, not from spilled water, but from something seeping up through the flagstones. Something that had been buried beneath them and refused to stay hidden. Patrick O'Connor had been missing for 10 days. When police lifted those stones in the Bermondsey home of Frederick and Marie Manning, they found him buried 3 feet down, skull caved in, bullet hole to the back of his head. The grave had been dug before he arrived for dinner. This is the Bermondsey Horror. A love triangle, a dinner invitation, an execution so disturbing that Charles Dickens wrote about it for years afterwards. Chapter 9. The Players. Marie Dereux was born in Switzerland around 1821, and like many young women of her class and era, she came to England to work in domestic service. She was clever, ambitious, and by all accounts attractive. She worked her way into good positions, eventually serving as a lady's maid to the Duchess of Sutherland, one of the most prestigious households in England. It was during her time in service that Marie met 2 men who would become entangled in her fate. The first was Patrick O'Connor, an Irish customs officer stationed in London. He was a man with money, with prospects, and with a romantic interest in pretty Swiss maids. O'Connor was known to carry substantial savings on his person, and he owned railway shares, the hot investment of the Victorian era, that were worth a small fortune. The second was Frederick Manning, a guard on the Great Western Railway. Manning was English, steady, dependable, less exciting than the Irish customs officer, but he was there and he was willing to marry her. Marie chose Frederick, or perhaps it's more accurate to say she chose marriage, security, and respectability, the legal status of a wife rather than the mistress, while keeping O'Connor as a backup plan. Because even after she became Mrs. Manning, Patrick O'Connor remained a frequent visitor to their home. The arrangement suited everyone, or at least for a little while. O'Connor enjoyed Marie's company. Frederick tolerated the situation, or perhaps didn't fully understand it, and Marie kept her options open. The Mannings settled into a modest house at 3 Minerva Place, Bermondsey, then a working-class area south of the Thames, far from the elegant townhouses where Marie had once served. The step down in status must have grated on her ambitions, and there, in that modest house with its kitchen flagstones, Marie began to plan. Chapter 10. The Dinner Invitation. By 1849, Marie had grown tired of poverty, tired of Bermondsey, tired of her husband's modest income as a railway guard. Patrick O'Connor had money. Money he'd promised to leave her in his will, money he carried on his person in the form of railway shares and cash. If O'Connor were to die, and if his will favoured her, well, a woman could do quite a lot with that kind of money. She could escape Bermondsey. She could live as she had once lived, in comfort and in style. But first there was preparation to do. Frederick Manning, whether he was a willing accomplice from the start or was manipulated step by step into compliance, helped his wife dig the grave beneath the kitchen floor. They broke through the flagstones, excavated the earth beneath, and created a hole large enough to receive a human body. They purchased quicklime to speed the decomposition. They bought a crowbar. They made their kitchen into a tomb, waiting for its occupant. And then they waited for the right moment. On August 8th, 1849, Marie Manning sent Patrick O'Connor an invitation. Would he like to come for dinner the next evening? The food would be good, the company pleasant. O'Connor, who had no reason to suspect anything amiss, accepted. He would be but delighted. On August 9th, Patrick O'Connor arrived at the Manning residence. Dressed well, expecting a pleasant evening. He walked across the kitchen floor, unaware that beneath those flagstones lay a grave that had been dug specifically for him. Chapter 11. The Murder. The details of what come next from the Mannings' own conflicted confessions and from the evidence found at the scene. Neither Frederick nor Marie ever told the same story twice, and each blamed the other for the killing. The truth lies somewhere in the accusations they hurled at each other. Dinner was served. Pleasantries, apparently, were exchanged, and then Marie suggested that Patrick might like to wash his hands at the sink. As O'Connor stood at the sink with his back turned, trusting, unsuspecting, and vulnerable, Marie drew a pistol and shot him in the back of the head. Remarkably, horrifyingly, this didn't kill him. O'Connor was wounded, perhaps stunned, but still alive. What came next was a brutal efficiency. Frederick Manning fetched a crowbar, and together husband and wife finished the job, caving O'Connor's skull with repeated blows. They stripped the body, taking everything of value: his gold watch, his share certificates, his cash, the keys to his lodgings. Then they lowered Patrick O'Connor into the grave they'd prepared and covered him with quicklime and soil. The flagstones were replaced, the kitchen was cleaned, the table was cleared. And then Marie Manning put on her bonnet and went to O'Connor's lodgings, where she used the keys taken from his body to access his rooms and steal more of his valuables. Chapter 12: The Discovery. Patrick O'Connor had friends. When he failed to appear at the usual haunts, pubs where he drank, the offices where he worked, when he missed appointments and letters went unanswered, those friends grew very concerned. This wasn't like O'Connor. He was reliable, predictable, a man of regular habits. Two of his friends went so far as to visit the Manning household, asking questions. Had they seen Patrick? Did they know where he might be? The Mannings were evasive, nervous. They hadn't seen him. They didn't know where he was. They seemed eager for the visitors to leave. The friends went to the police. When officers arrived at 3 Minerva Place on August 17, they found an empty house. The Mannings had fled separately, each hoping to escape while the other took the blame. But something about the kitchen caught the officers' attention. The flagstones seemed disturbed. There was a wetness seeping up between them, a dampness that shouldn't have been there. They lifted the stones. There, buried beneath quicklime that had failed to do its work, was the decomposing body of Patrick O'Connor. Chapter 13: The Hunt and the Trial. The Mannings were caught separately, their flight a testament to their mutual distrust. Marie was apprehended in Edinburgh, trying to sell some of O'Connor's railway shares. The certificates were evidence of murder, and she was carrying them openly, as if she had every right to them. Frederick was found in Jersey, having fled in a different direction entirely, perhaps each spouse hoping to escape while the other was captured and convicted. Their trial was an absolute sensation. The Victorian public, with its appetite for scandal and murder, packed the courtroom and devoured every detail in the newspapers. The Times, the Morning Chronicle, every publication in London covered the case with obsessive thoroughness. Each Manning blamed the other. Frederick claimed Marie had shot O'Connor without his knowledge, that he had only helped dispose of the body afterwards, under duress. Marie insisted Frederick had done the actual killing and that she had merely been present, helpless to stop him. The jury wasn't convinced by either story. Both were found guilty of the murder. The sentence was death by hanging. Chapter 14: The Execution That Horrified Dickens. On November 13, 1849, Frederick and Marie Manning were hanged together on the roof of Horsemonger Lane Jail, in front of a crowd estimated at 30,000 people. It was the first husband and wife execution in England since 1700, a spectacle that drew the morbid and the curious from across London. Among those 30,000 was Charles Dickens. Dickens had come not out of morbid curiosity, but as social critique and reformer. He was gathering evidence for his campaign against public executions, which he considered barbaric spectacles that degraded everyone who witnessed them. And what he saw that November morning haunted him for years. Writing to the Times the very next day, Dickens described the scene with barely contained horror. I believe that a sight so inconceivably awful as the wickedness and levity of the immense crowd collected at that execution this morning could be imagined by no man, and could be presented in no heathen land under the sun. He wrote of the jokes and of the laughter, of the drunkenness, the fighting that broke out among the spectators jostling for better views. He described the thieves working the crowd, the vendors selling food, the souvenirs as if at a fair, the complete absence of solemnity or reflection. All the while, two human beings were being put to death on the rooftop above. The experience helped fuel Dickinson's lifelong crusade against public execution, a campaign that would eventually succeed. It also gave him a character. Hortense, the murderous French maid in Bleak House. It's widely believed to be based on Marie Manning. Her accent, her coldness, her capacity for calculated violence hidden beneath a servant's deference. Chapter 15. The Poe Connection. The Bermondsey Horror happened 6 years after Poe published The Telltale Heart, so it couldn't have been inspiration of the story. But the parallels tell us something important about the fears that Poe tapped into. A body buried beneath the floor, a murderer who believes the secret is safe, contained, and hidden forever, and then the physical remains that refuse to stay concealed, that seep up through the stones, that announce themselves through smell and dampness, that demand discovery. In Poe's story, the narrator hears the beating of the heart beneath the floorboards, the sound of guilt made manifest, audible only to him, but growing louder until he can bear it no longer. In the Manning case, it was the literal seepage of decomposition that betrayed the killers. Reality echoed fiction, or perhaps both were drawing from the same deep well of human dread. Why does the body beneath the floor terrify us so particularly? Because it violates the most intimate space we have. The home is sanctuary. The kitchen is the heart of domestic life, where food is prepared and families gather. To bury a corpse there is to poison the ground where we stand, to transform safety into horror, to make every footstep a reminder of what lies beneath. Every creak of the boards becomes an accusation. Every meal prepared above the grave becomes a mockery of nourishment. Now, Poe understood this. The Mannings learned it the hard way. Marie Manning left one unexpected legacy. She wore a black satin dress to the execution, and the fashion industry took note. For years afterwards, black satin was considered unlucky, even cursed, the fabric of a murderess going to her death. The house at 3 Minerva Place was demolished. Bermondsey is gentrified now. Coffee shops and design studios occupy the streets where the Mannings once dug a grave beneath their own kitchen floor. But the case lives on in true crime history, in Dickinson's fiction, and in the long tradition of murderers who thought they could hide their victims beneath the very ground they walked on. Some secrets don't stay secret. Some bodies don't stay buried. Some crimes echo through history, reminding us that the floor beneath our feet is thin and what lies beneath can always rise again.